Hi, everyone. How are you? I am Wendy. I am an educator here for Singer. Rich, I am going to ask you if you could put me big on so that I can see see your announcements. Anyway, I am Wendy. So welcome. Like I said, I am a Singer educator, and we're here to have a little bit of fun. We're going to make this cute little project. So I have two versions for you. And forgive me, I talk fast like a Gilmore Girl. If you ever watched the Gilmore Girls, you know what I'm talking about. So here is one of them. This one has machine embroidery on it. And today we are using the Singer S 9180 here. So hopefully you can see that. You probably see all of my cameras. That's how we make the magic happen. So here's the first one. So little drawstring bag, just so that you can see how this happens. So that's the first one. And then I do have a little alternative that I will talk about a little bit later. So basically the same thing. The construction of the bag is the same, except this was a little different, and I'll talk about that as we get closer to that, so that if you do not have an embroidery machine, I do have an alternative for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started. I'm going to switch over to this machine right here, this camera right here. So that's a little foggy. So let me see if I can bring that in. How is that? Much better. Okay, so let me come back here. There were instructions. So on these instructions, there were particular cuts that you needed. It showed you how much fabric you needed, how to cut that fabric to get the different pieces that we have. I'm not going to do all that cutting in front of you. I do have some step-by-steps made up so that we can get everything that I have to say within this little hour. So first thing we need to do is we'll come over here is I do have my beginning piecing that I need to have done. That would be these strips. And unfortunately, I don't have the measurements of the strips right in front of me, but these are the three strips that we will need. And what this is it's basically forming the front of the bag. And it actually goes like this. So this will be the top of the bag. This is going to be the middle. And then this one here is going to be, let me go to this camera. Maybe this one here is going to be basically for the all practical purposes, the bottom of the bag. To sew this together, I am using a 1/4 inch. Right now, I do have my standard 8-foot on, and how I like to do this is there is an option that you can use a 1/4 inch foot, but I did not bring that with me today. A 1/4 inch foot does have a guide here that you can butt your fabric up against, but I forgot that foot. And that's okay, because I do prefer to use my 8-foot, and I actually like to move my my needle position. So here we have an option to move our needle position on this particular machine. And if I plus it, I don't know if you can see it up here or not, but it is moving more to the right. And I'm going to put this at a 2.0. So what I did was, instead, I moved my needle over instead of having it in the dead center, so that as I sew, and let's go ahead, and I do need to sew these pieces together, right sides together. And as I sew, I am going to be able to have the raw edge of my fabric line up with the right edge of my fabric here of the foot. And that's going to give me a 1/4 inch. So I want to do a 1/4 inch throughout, because that's how I cut these fabrics to make the size bag. Was I did think about 1/4 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this. It did a little tie off. Let me go ahead and get these stitched together for you. I do have a speed control. All right, speed that up. Okay. I have a little cutter there on the side. So there's the first one. And then let's go ahead and take this one. Again, right sides together. And there are some really fun fabrics that you can find for the holiday season at Michael's. So I would go ahead and stop out there, see what fabrics they have, see what's in your stash. That would work as well. Because this project does not take much fabric at all. I did try and find some Hanukkah fabric, but in my area, I could not find Hanukkah. I was kind of disappointed last year. I couldn't. There was tons of Hanukkah fabric, but this year it wasn't available to me, which is a little disappointing because I know that Christmas is not the only holiday that's being celebrated at this time of year. We also have Kwanzaa and we have Hanukkah. So it would have been nice to be able to find those fabrics. But check your Michaels store. They might have them in store now. So now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to this table. I do like to give this a little press, and I'm just going to press those seams open, or they're not open, to the side. And I do like to flip it over because if you see this, so it looks like you got a little lip there. So I do like to come from the front and just give it a little press. Okay. So at this point, this is a good time for us to go ahead and do our embroidery because our embroidery is on this piece. And obviously we had to piece it together in order to do the embroidery. So let me talk to you about embroidery real quick. So there's two ways that you can hoop fabric. I am more of a hooper myself, and that means I like to hoop the fabric along with my stabilizer. You do get a better stitch out, a better tension when you can do that, but sometimes you just can't. It may be an odd size, or like today, what we did was we pretty much we're doing this in steps to do the embroidery. So my front is a very particular size at this point, right? So hooping it may not be conducive to us. Also, there is a very specific place in which I want to put the embroidery. So if I'm able to just hoop my stabilizer, and that's what this is called, it's called floating. When you hoop your stabilizer only, and then you lay your fabric or garment or whatever you're embroidering on top of it. So there's a few things that you can do to help keep your fabric secure. And today we are going to be using what's called a sticky tearaway stabilizer. So it is a stabilizer and it has this paper on it because when we peel this away, there's a tacky underneath it. And that is going to help hold our fabric into place. You could also use just a regular stabilizer. Today we're using tearaway because that's what's best for the project. You could use a temporary spray adhesive and then spray your stabilizer itself and then lay your fabric on top of that. Downfall about using the temporary adhesive spray is it does get all over your hoop, and it's not the easiest thing to wash away. Like I have this hoop at home that I've had for years, and 4 years I've used the spray adhesive, and you could see all of the dust, all the little threads on it. It's not the easiest to clean. I've even tried to use that stuff, Gooby Gone or whatever. I tried soaking them. And alcohol, I've tried alcohol. It just doesn't always come as clean as you like to, but using a sticky stabilizer is going to help keep that aerosol spray out of your room. Also, the downfall is it does have a slight odor to it, so it may affect some people who are sensitive to smells. And if you're not careful with it, you can spray it elsewhere in the room, and please don't spray it near your machine. But I do know that Michaels does carry, I believe they carry the Sulky called Sulky K2000. So that is a temporary spray adhesive. It is a wash away and it is an air soluble, meaning that in time with just the air around you, it will dissipate. So before we do that, there's some things I want to show you. There is a specific area on this in which I want to line this up with. So I'm going to grab my ruler, and the instructions does tell you all about this, where to line it up at. And I have here, this is a friction pen. You can use a water soluble, air soluble, something that is fabric marking. Okay, and I know just about where I want this to be. And I think it was about halfway up. Yeah, halfway up, about halfway up the white area. So I'm just going to draw a line here. And then the other line I want to draw is I want to find the center point of this. And the easiest way to do that is just fold your fabric in half, a little finger press. Don't press it with your iron to get that marking or to find that center, because I don't want that to be very defined. So I just want to know, I just want to be able to find it. So that's pretty much all we're going to do there, is I just want to find that center point. Okay. Then on our hooping, so this is, like I said, a tacky tearaway. And what I did was earlier today, I scored it with my scissors so that I am able to just peel this away. Okay. And it exposes the tacky part. So when you do hoop this, you want to make sure that the paper side is up so that you're pulling the right thing away. Also, if we look at our hoops here, we have some center markings. So we have one here, and we have one up here at the top and one on the bottom. Oops, camera wise. And then we also have on the two sides. For this project, it kind of worked out that if I lined this seam up with those two markings, it worked out really well. And then lining this up with my center. So if we come in here, so if I dip this down, and do you see how I'm able to see where I'm lining that up at? And then I'll do the same on this side and see, am I there? This one seems to be up a little bit higher. And that's the good thing about the tacky back, is that it's not in the hoop. I'm able to make these adjustments right here on top of the hoop rather than unhooping, rehooping, and so forth. So then I will just take my ruler and I'm lining and just looking to see how that is lining up from the top to the bottom. And that's pretty darn good. Now you may get to the machine and you may decide that you want to do a little shifting. For this project, it is not detrimental that it has to be dead center. If it's off to one of the sides, just a smidgen, you're going to be okay. So that's pretty much how we want this to look is, and do you see where I have it? I don't have fabric up here, so I would be hooping only stabilizer up in that area anyway, and that's okay. So let's head over to the machine now. And for this machine, the embroidery unit has to be disconnected, and you can see right here. Oops, you don't see it right there. Let's go to this one. Right here, you can see that it is not exactly connected. Once I push this in, then this is going to go into embroidery mode. So let's just go ahead. And you see how it automatically goes into embroidery mode. And what it's asking me is, it says the arm needs to calibrate. So yes, let's calibrate that arm. Okay. Now, I already created the design. The design was actually created in the MySewNet software. So the MySewNet software has, it gives you a lot more embroidery capabilities. When you have a subscription to the software, you have access to 10,000 plus embroidery designs that are available in the library. And you also, in the silver version, which is the base version of the subscription, you also have access to this embroidery software. And in the embroidery software, there's a thing called Super Designs. And in there, that's where I got the candy canes from. It was in Super Designs. And I think they posted it up for you on the website too with these instructions. I'm not sure or not if they did that, but I think they gave you access to this designer. I don't remember. But also in when you have the software, it's pretty cool. So if you're creating something in the software and you're connected to the internet, you're able to send that design directly to the machine from the computer. So as long as you are logged in to this machine, this is a Wi-Fi capable machine. As long as you're logged into the machine and logged into the software at the same time, you're able to just send the design over to the machine. And that I did that earlier because I was, worried about internet here in the office. So I wanted to make sure that the design was on the machine. So I did that already. I am logged in to this with my personal account, obviously my computer and on the sewing machine. If you are not connected to the Wi-Fi, there is an option that you can send it over. You can put it on a flash drive, and this machine does have a flash drive on the side of the machine here, and you can see I also had my flash drive connected. So you have both ways of getting a design over to the machine. Right now, what you're seeing here, these are some of the built-in designs that do come on the SE 9180. And I don't remember how many there were, but there is also a Christmas design, a few Christmas designs on here as well that you could use. And I must have passed it up because I know there was. Oh, there was. Here's one, those teddy bears. Where did I see the other one? But, and these little candy canes. So there are designs built into this machine that you can use. There's also some fonts that are built in. So you have quite a few fonts to play with. But I'm going to go ahead and go straight to here. And you can see I already saved this design. This is now saved to the machine. I'm not grabbing it off the flash drive. To get it off the flash drive, you would need to come over here and say save from USB. And when I do that, then what it does is it automatically, I have something else there. So if I choose it, and now it says it's saved. So then let's close there. Now I have two of them because I grabbed the one off of my flash drive and this one was here from before, and that's okay. Well, you can just choose any of them and boom, there it pops up there. So now we're pretty much ready to go, except I do need to change my foot. There is an embroidery foot that we need to change out. Oh, maybe I should have, oh, shoot. Should have loosened this earlier. Oh my goodness. That's harsh. Let me see if I can find the screwdriver. I'm sorry about that. So while I'm switching this out, if there's any questions, please do ask those questions while I'm switching out these feet. And of course, when I want questions, nobody's asking questions. So this is going to be, wow. I should have thought about this earlier. I'm sorry, guys. So sorry. I do not have a screwdriver close to me. I wanted to show you how to do applique. Let me see if I can use this. Now I feel really bad. I wanted to show you applique. Have any of you done applique in the hoop? Anybody? So when you do applique in the hoop, there are multiple steps that you need to do. There, oh my goodness. I don't know who did this. I should have checked it earlier. Let me see if I can find some other device here that is going to help me pull this off. So if you have any questions, please ask about the machine, about my sew net, anything that comes to mind. Normally, I'm going to tell you, this normally is not this tight, and it should not be this tight. I will be honest with you, your any of your screws on your sewing machine, they should be just as tight as your hand can make it. You really should not be cranking it on, because when that happens, when you finally get the right tool or the screwdriver, what happens is you can end up stripping that screw. And then also, I'm making this look much difficult than what it is to switch the machine over. It really isn't that difficult to switch over. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I am going to have to walk away for a moment and find a screwdriver. I am so sorry about this. Give me 1 second because I really need to get this off.
Monet, are you there?
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Ah, sorry, got a screwdriver.
We seem to have a few folks that are having trouble opening the link to the handout with the measurements. The link that we have posted, that I have posted, it does work, but it's only pretty much the materials and just a few little details. There are no measurements or anything on the PDF that we have. But Monet, your PDF is not opening. It seems like it's a locked file there.
Try to figure out another way to send it.
I'll post the PDF that we have so you can see what it looks like, but it's very minimal information, the one that we have on our end.
Okay, is there would I be able to send it to Michael's and then they can upload it for everyone?
That's something you might have to check directly with Michael's.
Okay.
Okay, I am so sorry about that. Whew, I'm glad that there was a team here and they were able to find me a screwdriver really quick. So again, I had to take this off so that we can put the embroidery foot on. The embroidery foot, obviously, it does come with the machine. And again, now that I'm able to do it, do you see, I'm able to just do it with my hand, and that's how you should be able to do it for the most part. You really don't want to crank any of those screws on. Okay, so once this is in place, I am going to switch out my thread. I want to put an embroidery thread in so that you can see how that applique works, because I'm not sure if everyone's done applique in the hoop or not. So I want to be able to show you that so that you understand the concept of it. Okay. Right up our machine, get a little thread guide here. We do have a needle threader. And I'm gonna find it be faster for me to do it because I am getting my hand in there. I will just thread it. There is a needle threader, but sometimes it's faster for me to just go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that we're threaded, we will go ahead and slide this on, do a little extra lift, slide that on, and it connects. So let me go to this one so that you can see how it connects. And I'm just gonna hold this little silver part on and boom, and it snaps. Okay. So when I get to the design, I want to make sure that my center position, so I need to change this. So at home, it was a little different. I must have changed the dimensions of this, but here's where I am at. Oops. No, I don't want to delete. So I am going to go ahead and, oops. Is there a question?
We have a few folks asking for the exact measurements, being that it's not on the handout that was provided. Do you have the measurements of your?
Let me see. I have. So do they want to know for the cuts of what it was cut at?
Yes, Wendy, I'm getting them and I'm about to drop all the measurements in the chat and I will get with Michael's to have them upload the PDF so they can go right back to this project and it'll be there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other benefit of having the sticky stabilizer is I know that my design is going to start at the bottom. So I'm going to adjust this so that how I want this is I really want that to be in the center position. So I'm just going to move my fabric so that I know that I want that design to start down at the bottom. And it's right there on the center. Then I will just check and make sure that we're all good, we're all straight. Okay. So then the first thing that happens with an applique design in the hoop is it's going to stitch a placement stitch. Oops. Go to the Rotary, stitch out. I thought I did. Okay, so here we have some edit things. We can position this in the hoop. I don't need to, so your design, you can do see how you can position it. I'm gonna go right back to dead center. So I'm gonna go back to dead center so that this here, my control wheel, this will put the center, the design in the dead center of the hoop. Here you have the option to rotate. You can change the thread colors. I can delete it. I can do a scaling. And when I mean by scaling, I can adjust the size of the embroidery design, but I am not changing the density or the stitch count of it. It's just changing the size. So you really don't want to take this more than 20% up or 20% down. And then I do have my mirror, and then I can also save the design. And then here I'm good with the design. I'm ready to go. So let's go to embroidery stitch out. Okay. So here it's going to show you the colors, and right now this is grayed out. So it's going to show you, for the most part, and let me see if I can advance. That presser foot. Oops. I started it where I didn't want to start it. I did start it wrong. So let's go back. And I'm going to readjust this. Oh, and we're on the wrong screen. So I'm just going to readjust this because I do want it. So the first thing that happens is it's going to stitch a placement stitch. Seam unthreaded. Of course, everything that's going to happen is going to happen today, right? Because I'm on camera. That's how it always goes. So you can see it happens to us. It'll happen to you. Things happen. And it's okay. Everything's fine. Okay. I don't necessarily need to back up, but I am going to go ahead and back up so that you can see. So when something happens and your machine, either through your thread breaks or something like that, there is an opportunity that you can back up your design to go backwards. So right here. And because I'm on the first thing there, I'm just going to take it backwards. I took it back to the very first. I'm going to stop the machine so that I can click that thread. So when the machine stops, you want to go ahead and lay, I'm going to pull that thread out. You want to lay this fabric. So there's your placement stitch. So you know exactly where to lay your fabric. And then you lay your fabric on top of that. So you want to make sure that it is all, the whole placement line is covered, because then what's going to happen is it is going to, and I came unthreaded again. What's going to happen is it's going to go ahead and do another tack down stitch, and it's going to hold this fabric into place. And again, I'm just going to stop the machine so I can clip that thread. It's not going to be a big deal, but I'm just going to go ahead and clip it. And I'm just gonna go ahead and take this off. Had scissors, was able to cut it. So then, once it's tacked down, and let's go ahead and go to this camera so that you can see this. I am using these nice curved pointed scissors. So then I'm going to cut this away as close to the stitching as I can, but not through the stitching, because I don't want that to come up. And it didn't finish stitching here, but that's because I stopped it. So, but we'll be okay. For this little bit here, I am going to pick this up and position it better in my hand just to trim that away. When you have that much sticking out, depending on the satin stitch, it might poke out from the other side of the satin stitch, and you really don't want that. You want to be able to have those satin stitches go all the way around this, covering that raw edge to keep that from unraveling underneath the stitching. So that's why I want you to clip through or clip up to the stitching, but not through, so that it doesn't have to be like perfectly clean. You can see that I've got some little jagged edges, but I know the satin stitching will cover that. And you don't want to clip up past the satin stitch or the tack down stitch, because when you do, what will happen is when the satin stitch comes down, and you'll see the satin stitch is going to go, you know, on both sides of this. If this thread is cut, then what can happen is this edge won't be cut underneath the satin stitch, and through use or laundering, that will start to peel away from the satin stitching. So you do want to make sure that that is, so that's pretty good. All right, back to the machine it goes. We will slide this on, and then it's going to go ahead and do the satin stitching. What it does is it does a underlay stitch. So if you look at it, it's stitching inside, and then it's going to do one outside, and then it's going to come back and do the satin stitching. So this is also giving you a little bit more of a tack down to make sure that that fabric falls underneath both sides of those satin stitches. So now you can see how it's coming around the outside of that circle, and it's creating like this border of which the satin stitches are going to go on top of. Now it's doing the satin stitching. I'm not going to stitch all the way around because this design is going to take a little bit of time to stitch out, but you get the idea. So once it goes through the satin stitching all the way around that circle, then it's going to go straight into stitching out the candy cane. And on your screen, you can just go ahead and follow along with the, with what color is going to pop up. And you can see right now we're in the satin stitch. So this is blue. So on the embroidery design, the satin stitch is blue, but the machine doesn't know, nor does it care what color threads you actually have in your machine. It's just showing you that this is the area that is stitching out at this moment. And this is grayed out because it's in the background. We're not there yet. And as you progress through the colors, it will show up of oops, I'm doing one stitch at a time. it will show you exactly which one you're on. So again, it's just showing you what area you're on. It doesn't matter what color thread you physically have on the machine, but you have that idea so that if you are a person like me who likes to sit at my machine and look at the embroidery design and say, oh, it's in this part, it's stitching out the berries of this. Let me look and see what color thread I have right sitting next to me or in my bin, opposed to following that. The verbatim of that. So, okay. I'm not going to stitch this whole thing out, but just know that it will go ahead and stitch out the candy cane. So let's take this off. Okay. Let me press our foot. Normally I would have a white bobbin in, but today I just grabbed a bobbin. It happens to have like a pinkish color thread on it, and that's okay. There are threads that you would use for embroidery. It's more of a 60 weight thread. It's a thinner thread. So that is ideal for embroidery. However, there are times when you're doing embroidery that you want the same thread in your bobbin as you do on the top. And that will happen like if you're doing freestanding lace or something like that. That could be a whole other class for doing that kind of stuff, but there is some freestanding lace designs that are on the My Sew Net library. So if you want to check those out, that's available too. And there are a bunch of other Christmas designs that are on the My Sew Net library. So if you're not completely content with the candy canes, you can go ahead and hop over to the library and find another design. So I'm just going to put this aside and let me show you through the magic of this. Here's the design. So it's all stitched out and you can see I still have my markings, and that'll just go away once I press it, because I did use friction pen on this. So it all, you know, go away when I press it. So then the next step after you get the embroidery done, you have all of the rest of your pieces. So you have the back of the bag, you have your lining, and you have what's called the bag extender. And you would just go ahead and piece this all together. And on the instructions, there is a diagram that will help you. And since they don't have that on there, I do have the instructions handy here with me. So in the instructions, when they're able to get it posted, you will see that there is a nice diagram that tells you exactly how to do that. So I boxed in this area so that you know that that is the whole entire front panel that we already pieced together and we embroidered. And then you have your backing or the accents, and then you have your back, your accent, and then your two linings. So it is going to create one long strip like this. Okay, it's all going to get pieced together in one long strip. So once you have that all pieced together, then what you will do is you will fold this together, right sides, and you can see that my linings are lining up. My accents are lining up. This is my front, and then my back was just one solid piece. I didn't do any kind of piecing on the back, but you'll notice that this is laying nice and flat. And all of my seams here are matching up. Okay. If it is not laying flat and you have like a bubble on the end, then that means something wasn't cut exactly to the proportion it needed to be. Then you may need to trim something to get all of these to line up. Does that make sense to everyone? So that's how it's going to look. Okay. You also want to be conscious of your embroidery design. The first time I made this bag and I had it all finished and I pulled it out, I was like, oh, I'm done. It was upside down because I didn't pay attention to I made the front directional at this point. So once you have it and it's directional, you need to pay attention of how you're laying it out. And that's why I had that diagram. So I did make that diagram according, had it laid out how you should lay it out on your table. So then when you start piecing it together, you won't make the same mistake I made. Okay, so over here to this camera, there are a few other things that we need to do. Okay, with my iron. So on this, I'll pin it. So this right here, this is our accent pieces. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you mark 2 lines an inch away. And I believe from the seam allowance, this was 2 inches or something like that. I don't remember, but the instructions will tell you. So I'm going to mark that on both sides of my fabric. Okay. What this is going to be is this is going to be the opening for our drawstring. So at the end, we'll be making, this is going to be our casing. So that's why you want to have that, because we are not going to sew into that area. The other thing you want to mark up is right here. I marked an opening. So again, this is an area in which we're not going to stitch in. This is going to be the lining, this section that you see right here. So we're going to pull the bag out through the lining. So that's why this needs to be open. I already drew this on. So this bag has, it's what you call boxed corners. And that helps lay the bag. So when the bag is sitting up and you have stuff in it, it does lay, or it stands up a little nicer. So what I did here, now the instructions tell you in a different way, and I'll show you that way. And then I also like doing it this way. So I'll show you both ways, but right now I have it marked on all 4 corners, and this was 1.5 inches. This is 1.5 inches square, and this is 1.5 inches square. So I will show you both ways, but this is the one that I have it set up for. And you could decide which way you like better. So what we need to do now is we need to stitch all the way up the sides, skipping that area. I do want to strongly suggest that you do a back tack here so that it doesn't pop open as you turn it out, and then also do a back tack at the lining at these 2 places. So let's go ahead and head over to the machine, and we just need to take this off and put our shank back on. Okay, that comes right off. And pop this on. Normally I would switch threads, but for demonstration's sake and time's sake, I'm not going to go ahead. I do like to use, when I'm constructing something, a thread that matches the fabric. This is also a rayon thread that I have. It's not against the rules to sew with a rayon thread. It's just nicer to sew with a construction thread like your Coats and Clark or your Gutermann, whichever Michaels carries. I believe they carry coats, and that's okay. All right, so we'll quickly do this. So I do need to get out of embroidery mode, and to do that, I'm just going to separate this so that it is no longer connected right here. So that's all I did, was just move it away. I don't necessarily have to move this completely out of the way. For today, we're just going to disconnect it, and you can see that it brought me back to my sewing mode. Now, because I went from embroidery back to sewing mode, I do have my center needle stitch, and to get back to the 1/4 inch, I do need to redo that. And, you know, took a second or 2. So let's go ahead and let's sew this up. I do highly suggest that you pin, and I am working around a camera. You can use wonder clips or you can use pins, but here I'm going to start here. Presser foot. Oh, I have to plug my presser foot back in because you cannot use the start stop button as long when the presser foot is connected, but when the presser foot is, or the foot pedal is connected, I can use the foot pedal. So see, I can't use this. Oops. Oh, I broke a thread again. For heaven's sakes. It just is not my day. Just is not my day. So we have a start stop button and we have the foot pedal. You can use whichever is convenient for you. Me, I am more of a foot pedal kind of person. I prefer to do the foot pedal opposed to the start stop button. Only because you will react faster to lifting your foot off the foot pedal than you will to try and come up here to the start stop button. Do a little reverse there. So with my needle down, put my needle down, and let's go ahead and pivot. I'm off a little. Oh, my stars. No, my bobbin thread's not coming up. I just cannot catch a break today. Just cannot catch a break. So let's go ahead and check our bobbin. I like to put the cap on before I break the thread. Sometimes, depending on what thread you're using, it could bounce back, and when it bounces back, it'll come out of the tension. So I do, and that's just something I like to do. It's not something you have to do, but I do like to do it that way. Okay. All right, let's do this again. Cross our foot. And sew my needle down so that when I pivot, and I'm sewing this long thing around a camera. So you do want to guide it. Most of the time you will not be sewing around your camera, so it's easier to guide. As I come up to this, I am going to do a reverse. Like I said, I want to make sure that that does not, that stays secured when we go to pull it out. I'm going to use my scissors and then lift my presser foot and then just skip that and then move up. Okay. Presser foot and again, use your reverse. And just want to make sure that that seam allowance stays down. My bobbin's running low, so we're just going to play a little chicken here, a little bobbin chicken. Use my scissors. I don't need to come down and sew down this area because this is already stitched from when we pieced it all together in the chain. So then I could just come here and then just start coming down this way. Oh, really? So then you're going to sew all the way down. I just cannot catch a break today. All righty. So you're going to sew all the way down, and I really want to sew all the way down. So let's just go ahead and take this one apart so that you can see this. So then what happens is you're going to put these inside of each other. And you know what? Let's go ahead and box one of those corners for you. So 2 ways you can box these corners. On the instructions, it is written that, and it's going to be easier for me to show you here, that you will fold this together. So I'm opening this up. Okay. I'm opening this up and I'm laying that flat, that seam flat. Okay. And then you would take your ruler and you would draw a line across. And that pretty much lines up with my line that I already drew. And you would draw a line across. And then once you've done that, you would then stitch directly on that line. Okay, so then you would take it over to the sewing machine and you would stitch directly on that line. Then after you stitched on that line, you would cut it off with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's one way to box the corner. Another way to box the corner is, as you can see here, I already drew my 1.5 inch box, and all I did was just line my ruler up like that and just drew across it. And I did the same on this side as well. So this here is the bag. This portion right here is the front of the bag. So this is going to be the bottom of the bag. So you want to mark it there, and you want to do the same to the lining because you want your lining to be boxed as well. So you would do the same on all 4. Then what you would do is come in and you would cut that out. Okay, so you cut that out. And then what you do is you would take it and line those seams up like that. And then I like to pop a pin in there. And then now we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we will stitch across right here. I personally prefer to do this method. I just feel like I have a little more control over it. I feel like I'm getting a more of an accurate box opposed to folding it in. It all depends on your comfort level, but it's 2 different ways to do it. So let's go ahead and see if I have enough bobbin that I can sew that up.
Wendy, just letting you know, we have about 5 minutes left. In the
Oh no. And it's not got enough bobbin. Okay. Okay. So you would do that on all 4 corners, and then it'll be boxed. So it will look like this. You know what? Oh, you know what? On this one, I actually did not sew up the bottom so we can see it. So here, this is left open. So you can see here how this is sewn. And then remember that space that we left? This is so that you can turn it out. Okay. Once you have it turned out and you have it before you push it inside, you do want to match that up and sew across the bottom so that you don't have a hole inside your bag. The other thing that you need to do, and all of this is on the instructions, is once you have your bag looking like this, over here are the two sides that we did not stitch into. That is the opening of your casing. But once you have it turned out, you want to take your friction pen and draw a line here above the opening and then another one here below the opening, because you want to do a straight stitch there. And the easiest way to do that is to go ahead and remove your accessory tray and or your embroidery unit, because what we're doing is we are exposing your free arm here. So to do that straight stitching, you would just slide this in, and then you would just sew all the way around the bag, following those lines that you drew. Okay, and you would do it on both sides. That's what's going to create the casing for the drawstrings. Now for the drawstrings, there's 2 ways that you can do it. On this particular bag, I just used a ribbon, and I used a grosgrain ribbon because it is a nice strong ribbon, and I know Michaels carries this. So that's all it is. I didn't have to do anything special to it. The other option that you have is you can make your own drawstrings, as I did on the pink bag. Wherever that one went, on the pink bag. And I chose the same fabric that I used for the backing and a good portion of the bag. So to do that,
go back to this one. All you need to do is you want to fold it in half. Give it a good press, because this time we do want to press it to find our center. And then once we have our center, then we will just fold this in and fold that in so that it meets in the middle. Give that a good press. And you'll do it all the way down your strap. Then once you have that pressed, then you fold it one more time. And give that a really good press. And again, all the way down your whole entire strip. Then you'll take this to the machine and you will just do an edge stitch right on the edge on the open side. Now you can do it on both sides if you like. That's a personal preference. Some people want that balance. For me, I only sewed the one side down. And when I say an edge stitch is about 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edge. You don't want to go too much further than that. You can just line it up with your foot and you can sew that all the way down. So that's how you make your straps. Okay. And I already have those made here. So you can see that I did only sew down the one side. I did not sew down both, and that is okay. How you thread this in is, and if you have a bobby pin, a bobby pin works pretty good. You want to make sure that it is small enough, the right size to go through that casing. So you would just connect it on one side and you run it through. So you'll, if I start here on this side, I run it all the way through and then I come out this end. So if I started on this side, and then I should have my two hanging because it went completely around the whole entire circumference. Then the next one you'll take, because there's two of them, you need to make two of them. Then you take the second one and you start on this side and run it all the way through the circumference until it comes out again on this side. So you do have two separate ones in there. And the whole purpose is so that when you pull on this, you have that's how it's closing. And yes, this does make a nice long strap, but that's how that works, is you do need two and they're all the way around. So as I was telling you earlier, if you do not have an embroidery machine, this one was not done with embroidery. It was actually done just by cutting a circle. And you can find something in your home that, you can trace to make that perfect circle. And then before I sewed it on, I actually drew this on with just a pencil, and then I colored it in with some fabric markers. These fabric markers, again, are available at Michael's, so that is another option if you don't have embroidery. And then I sewed on some buttons for the little berries of the holly. So on your machine, and let's go ahead and take a look at this. You do have a satin stitch. So if we go into our decorative stitch menu, which there's like over 280 decorative stitches here, this one right here is your satin stitch. So when I choose that, you can see, and it's telling you what foot the suggested foot for your decorative stitch. I am going to change the stitch length. And what the stitch length does is it brings those stitches, do you see the spacing between it? It brings them closer together to make a tighter stitch. So if I'm just do you see how that changed to make it smaller? You can also adjust the width, and the width is going to be the zig and the zag of how far away that zig and the zag is going to be. So if you want it narrower, you can make it narrower and you can see how it changes. If you need it wider, do you see how wider it gets? So the max is 7 millimeters on this machine. So that is the widest satin stitch I can get on that. But you could find a medium in between, however you want to do that. That is a personal preference on the look you want. But just like the machine embroidered one, you do want to make sure that those raw edges are covered all the way around. That's the whole purpose of the satin stitch, is to keep this fabric in place and not to fray with laundering or with use. So you do have some options other than the machine embroidery, but the machine embroidery is super fun to do because you do have, if you're not artistically talented, I was surprised that I was artistic enough to draw just those leaves out. So again, different fabrics here. These were purchased at Michael's. So we definitely have a fun holiday theme going on here. Doesn't have to be for the holidays. It could be for birthdays, for Hanukkah, for Easter, for Halloween. We could have made these little gift bags for Halloween if you needed to. The good thing about this is that odds are, if you are putting a gift in this, the person who received the gift will probably hold on to this and use it, or they may reuse it and regift it to someone else as well. So that's you've got those options there. When you make these bags, once you've made a few of them, you can go ahead and adjust the sizes. So just by playing with the dimensions of the cutting dimensions that I gave you for this size bag, you can adjust it. The way you're going to put it together is the exact same way you're going to put all of those pieces together to make one long strip of all those different pieces. So you can make this bigger, you can make it smaller, however, whatever size you want. And then of course you don't have to do a circle for the embroidery. You can use a square, you can use a heart, whatever you want to do. So yeah, any questions? No? Okay. Then I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. I do thank you so much for your patience with that foot issue and me having to run and get a screwdriver. Something I will put on my checklist next time I do a class. Alrighty. Thank